Welcome back at the Lodge with Jim and Michelle, a podcast celebrating life spent in the great outdoors. Whether you're an angler, a hunter, trapper, or someone just enjoying an active outdoors lifestyle, this show is for you. Join Jim Broughton and Michelle Sherman as they discuss outdoor news, opinions, events, and much more occurring over recent weeks. It's time now to pull up a chair, pour a favorite beverage, gather close to the campfire, and kick up those tired feet and relax, because you're back at the Lodge.
Here we are, Jim, back at the Lodge.
Yeah, here we are.
It's a beautiful sunny day in Minnesota.
It is, and today we are coming to you live from a city park in Burnsville, Minnesota.
Who would have thunk it?
Yeah. So if you hear any background noises that sound like kids playing, it probably actually is kids playing.
I don't know how many podcasters go to a city park in a city they don't live in.
That's right. Well, we needed to find a good spot to meet, and we wanted that outdoorsiness, and this is as close as we could get today, so
that's right.
You'll have to bear with us. Well, what's happening in the outdoor world?
There's been a lot happening in the outdoor world just in the month of August. Let's just take that little slice of heaven and talk about some of the recent events.
Well, before we get to that, let's talk about what happened this morning in the outdoor world, and you didn't even know about it.
Oh, okay.
You slept right through it, apparently.
What's that?
The central states had an earthquake this morning.
Oh.
At about 7:10 or so Central Time. I think the epicenter was down in the north central part of Oklahoma somewhere, but it was felt all the way in Kansas City and in parts of northern Minnesota even felt some of the tremors. So not sure if this is something that's just the
shifting of the tectonic plates.
Yeah, something that's going to be a harbinger of things to come, or if it's a one-time occurrence. But those of us in the Midwestern states, we don't find earthquakes too often.
You remember that one in Chicago, like 8-9 years ago? Remember that one?
No, I don't, but tell us.
Well, I just remember it being a big deal because that was when, 8-9 years ago, Twitter was very popular.
Okay.
And that's when Twitter was being used to actually tell the news.
Right.
A person got out of bed and felt it and tweeted out, like, hey, was that an earthquake? And so she was actually spreading the news faster than what traditional media was.
Right.
And then she went on to speak. She actually became a speaker.
Oh, really?
It really kind of catapulted her career.
Oh, I bet.
As a social media maven, if you will. I don't know what she's doing now. Probably nothing, because Twitter sucks. So...
Yeah, I got to admit, I don't use Twitter as much as I used to. And I'm not sure why. I mean...
Well, there's articles out there about people not using...
I think, I hate to say it, but after a while you get bored with things. I mean, you even get bored with Facebook, and there's times where I just want to go off and not even put any posts on, or go back to letting people guess about what's going on in my life, but rather than telling them everything in vivid detail.
Or do the old-fashioned way and actually pick up a phone and call you.
Yeah, that too.
Or send an email maybe even, huh?
But I have found I don't use Twitter quite as often, but I mean, that is a prime example, though. I mean, of being able to use social media to report things that are happening there, then, and now.
Yeah.
And, that's not something we had back even 10 years ago.
No. So it just reminds me that every time I think of earthquakes, I just think of that one in Chicago.
Well, I digress a little by bringing that up, but since it was so newsworthy here a few hours ago, and by the time most people will hear this podcast, they probably won't even remember it happened because it wasn't very significant. But I think it was only like a 5.6 on the Richter scale, but
that's pretty significant.
For those of us in the interior states, we don't get them too often, so this is our little chance for excitement, I guess.
Well, speaking of things blowing up in the industry,
yes,
there's been a little video out there I believe you've seen with a gentleman throwing a spear at a bear.
Right.
That's caught the attention of the nation once again. And it's been talked about. I've listened to some podcasts who've had some, I'm going to use air quotes, average Joes on, and then they had some, I'm going to use air quotes again, personalities on to talk about the event. one podcast, I actually emailed them and I said, hey, great that you did a podcast to talk about this, but you didn't have any females on, because to me, I would have loved to hear the average Jane perspective on this, because it was the woman in this relationship that lost the sponsorship, not the man.
Oh, okay. Well, let's be a little more specific. What was the sponsorship that got lost?
With Under Armour. She, I don't know what her involvement was. There's stories that it wasn't really that involved at all. I think even by her own words, that they ended up buying most of their Under Armour stuff themselves anyway.
Right.
And that Under Armour didn't do a whole lot for them to begin with.
Right.
But she was part of their campaign that they kind of launched. They did a lot at SHOT Show last year. I don't even know.
Well, that's just it. I mean,
with like Eva Shockey and blah blah.
I don't think we're going to get into the specifics and all details of everything like that. But what do you think about those type of sponsorships, Michelle? I mean,
for Under Armour, it's tough. That's tough. You're treading water between non-hunters and hunters. And I just noticed, I read an article yesterday, their stock dropped pretty significantly.
But do you think it's just from that, or do you think it's other factors, other competition? I mean, nobody stays at the top forever.
No, and I was reading on The Street, which is a financial online source, that it probably needed to be adjusted anyway. The stock did. But it was downgraded by the S&P 500, and it was a loser for the week last week.
So do you think... Now, obviously, Under Armour shows up at the SHOT Show regularly. Right. How do you think they'll be received this year? Do you think
it's going to be interesting.
I think it is, too. I mean...
Because there's videos of people burning their Under Armour stuff.
Right. And, you know, I see it both ways. I'm not sure that if I paid as much money as I would have had to pay to get Under Armour, I'd go burning it just to prove a point. Right. Or to make a statement, I guess.
You brought up a very valid point. I went through my stuff to see how much Under Armour stuff I had. I found one item of clothing because I can't afford their stuff, so I never bought it.
I only have 2 items of Under Armour, and they're both basically long underwear.
Base layer stuff.
And base layer, and they were items that I bought several years ago on clearance.
Yeah, that would be the only reason I would ever buy them.
It was the reason I bought, and, you know, it's good stuff. I'm not going to say it's the best stuff out there. And
you know what? There's so many other companies, Jim, just right here in our backyard in Eagan, Minnesota. There's a company called WSI Sports that I believe we've talked about that I think is better than Under Armour.
And not just you. I think a lot of people think that's...
They're outfitting the Vikings. When the Vikings had to play in the 20 below weather last season, they're outfitting baseball clubs. And so, folks, if you are not an Under Armour fan anymore, please look up WSI Sports. Google them.
There's a certain...
Made in the USA.
There's certainly a lot of
Under Armour
options out there.
cannot say that. So.
Well, I think, you know, getting back, I think it's going to be interesting at the SHOT Show for them. You know, will there be any hostility showing? I don't know. I mean, I think they'll probably...
Well, they need to figure their shit out.
Yeah.
They need to figure it out because they were walking the line, and for them to think that this never was going to happen to them, then they're a bunch of idiots. They should have had a plan in place. They should have had a crisis communications plan in place. Their PR people should have seen this coming. I'm sorry that they didn't, because their response to this was, to me, says they did not see this coming. And that's just being dumb.
Or is it possible that they didn't really care? Is that it possible that...
the co-founder is a hunter, so...
Well, yeah. But we don't know these facts, I don't think. But does the hunting market represent such a small market share that they really don't care?
Could be.
You know, we don't have access to all that information, and I'm sure it wouldn't be hard to obtain if you wanted to do some research. But I think that's where we gotta, as sportsmen, we gotta kind of be careful too, because we think we can make some statements by not buying some of that. You know, it may not make much of a statement to that company's bottom line. It might affect them a little bit PR-wise, but then how long does that last?
Yeah.
You know,
short memories.
a year or two goes by, and do people start forgetting and going back to saying, you know, I remember I had that. It kept me warm out there.
Yeah.
I don't know. You know, time will tell, but certainly that is something that's been out and about in the outdoor world, and people.
It's sad. It's brought up some great conversations though on stuff that I've been saying for the past 5-6 years, is how you act on TV and how you act on video when you do harvest an animal, when you do take a life, makes a huge difference. I mean, 10, 15 years ago, there was this huge campaign about deer hunters covering up their deer when they haul it out of the woods so that you didn't have this bloody mess dripping down the side of your car and antagonizing people.
Right.
Okay, so we fix that. We wrap our deer in tarps, and you know, we make sure they're. And then when we take our trophy shots, we clean up the blood and we set them up, or we Photoshop the blood out before we pose it on social media. But there's still this core group of hunters who says, "I don't give a shit. I'm going to do what I want to do." Who have bumper stickers that say, "If it flies, it dies. If it's brown, it's down."
Right.
And I'm sorry, in 2016. We can't be doing that anymore.
Well, you know, and I think we live in such a visual world where people are making statements in ways they never used to do it because they didn't have those type of accesses, the little cameras. And I mean, pretty much every time we leave home now, we've got a video camera with us with our cell phone. And
but how this particular hunter acted in this particular instance, being filmed, would he have acted like that if he wasn't being filmed?
Right. But, I mean, it's not only just being filmed, Michelle. I think it also, you know, you can film stuff, but you don't have to show the world everything. You can have it for your own purposes. But now everybody thinks that because they captured something on video or just captured pictures of something, they have to share it with the world because that's how we've been programmed, you know. There's the Facebooks and the Instagrams, and I mean the list goes on. Snapchat, you know, whatever.
Right.
And if it just seems like everybody feels this urge to share, and there's probably things that shouldn't be shared. I mean, there's a lot of things that go on in this world that I do not agree with, and I'm not going to get into the specifics about that.
But do you share them on Facebook, right?
But when people do share them on Facebook, so they're in your face, even though you don't agree with them, it makes you that much more wanting to, you know, not agree with that issue. Yeah, it's just so I think we have to all be a little bit more cautious about what we show the world. You know, just because we're proud of the way we shot an animal or however, I don't think that necessarily has to. Now, that doesn't mean we have to be, you know, ashamed or embarrassed about it either.
No, it's being respectful, Jim.
It is.
It's being respectful after you harvest the animal. It's being respectful when you take that trophy shot. It's about, I was reading an article about the psychologist who reviewed a bunch of outdoor life and Field and Stream, and he was reviewing the trophy shots. And he was saying the psychology behind these trophy shots was that it was very respectful. Everyone cleaned the animal up almost to make it look like they were still alive. They were posed over the animal. If you think of a typical white-tailed deer trophy shot, you're always posed behind but above, right? Mm-hmm. Domineering. So you're the dominant one, as if to say, I conquered this. This is mine. But the animal looks as if it's still alive, and it's just kind of sitting there. And it's just this... The psychologist was saying it was just this whole respectful of what happened, of what just took place.
Right. Yeah, I know. I mean, when I think back at it over the years, and obviously I was hunting and fishing and doing things long before the social media came along, you know, and I've got a lot of pictures of my past.
Sure. Well, blogging was the way you got that out.
And you know, there's a lot of things that you can take pictures and video of that you can just enjoy. And it's okay if you just have them for your friends and you have a brag book when you you come over. And I almost hate to even call it a brag book because that's almost not even something that sounds good anymore, but that's what we used to call them. But, yeah, I mean, there's this sense that in today's world that it is so easy to share it that everybody has to do it. And I think in some cases it backfires not only for those people, but for all of us.
Really a backfire for the entire industry. I mean, I feel like this month we really took 5 steps back as far as how non-hunters view us. And I'm not even talking about anti-hunters. I'm talking about the 70% that, according to NSSF, National Shooting Sports Foundation, there's about 70% of the general public, if you ask them, what do you think about hunting? Are you pro or con? And they're just kind of like, meh. You know, I approve it, I guess, But
stuff those like people are also vulnerable if they see too much stuff they don't need to be seeing.
Someone spearing a bear.
They may change their mind.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, they just think, yeah, it's great that people can do that. But, I'm not sure that I agree with that. Mm-hmm. I don't know. It's something that I think every one of us has to think about because I sense that there's no turning back. It's going to be a more visual world from here on out. And I think we just all, as outdoor people, sharing what it is we enjoy doing, we have to be more careful, more respectful. And that's not to say that we don't show the pictures that of our success, but we have to do it in a way that,
we need to get rid of the screw you mentality.
Yeah.
That a lot of, and I'm going to say men, I'm going to say it's a lot of men have this mentality because I see it on Instagram. It's just screw you society. It's legal to do this. I'm going to do whatever I want, how I want, when I want, and no one's going to tell me otherwise. And it's just kind of like, the person that always comes to mind is Ted Nugent. Ted Nugent would be the first one to tell you, I don't care if that animal's bloodied and cut in half or whatever, post it on Facebook, because that's what hunting is, and da-da-da.
Well,
I don't think Ted Nugent should be speaking for the entire hunting society.
And I can certainly see, his point of view, but I look at it from other aspects too, and there's no right or wrong answer, but I think for us bringing it up today, it's just something that...
Well, we can see what happens when...
Well, we can, but I think it's also important for people to think twice before they post something. Whether it needs to be posted or not, or there's settings on Facebook that share it with your friends or share it with the public.
True.
And if you're going to share something, why would you not just share it with people who would appreciate seeing it, as opposed to sharing it with the public so that anybody starts sharing the picture you posted? All of a sudden there's perfect strangers that don't even know what an upstanding person you are. Now they're thinking you're just the most rotten individual that's ever walked the face of the earth.
Judging you based on
what you did. So
yeah.
But I think, getting back to the Under Armour, I think in time people are going to forget, and they're going to go back to what works, what they.
Now there's now they're trying to outlaw spearing.
Yeah.
Especially in Canada, where this took place. So I mean, cause and effect, people. There's repercussions for everything.
And it's, to me, that's first of all, I'm not surprised that people try hunting that way. It's nothing that really excites me. I mean,
I'm sure his blood was going.
Oh, I'm sure it is.
Near a bear like that.
But I tell you, when if they're going to outlaw something like that, then they're going to outlaw what other forms of activities that are similar to spearing. There's snaring.
That's just it.
All of a sudden, people aren't going to be able to snare animals anymore. You're not going to be able to use a box trap where you can,
the slippery slope, just like with gun laws.
It can be, and
I think one thing that I found most interesting in reading some of the comments and discussions on this over the past month was that a lot of hunters are saying, well, you anti-hunters always tell us to get closer to the prey and try and, because we have our long-range rifles and everything. And so he's like, well, here's spear throwing. You can't get much closer than...
No, and I mean...
And they still are upset by it.
Yeah. Of course, it may not be the very same people. It may be a different, but it's still... No matter what you do, there's somebody that will be...
Damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Pretty much. I've certainly learned that in life. Well, let's take a break here, Michelle, and move on to a different topic after a word from this fine sponsor.
Which we should talk about this fine sponsor.
We will, right after the break.
This is the time of year to get out and cook out. So make your next meal sizzle with Camp Chef, the brand known for quality outdoor cooking. From camp stoves to cast iron, from smokers to grills, Camp Chef will change the way you cook outdoors. To eat like a king on your next adventure, go to campchef.com or visit your local sporting goods store and get cooking. Whether you're serving breakfast in the backcountry or barbecue on the back patio, savor the simplicity with Camp Chef. Camp Chef, the way to cook outdoors.
Welcome back to Back at the Lodge with Jim and Michelle. The wind's starting to pick up a little bit out here now.
It is. We'll find out if our windscreens are working out here in this city park. Well, Michelle, we said that we kind of teased a little bit about our sponsor here.
Yeah, big news.
Yeah, something happened with Camp Chef here, just a few days ago?
Just a few days ago. They sent out an announcement on PR Newswire saying that they were bought out by Vista Outdoors, which actually has an office here in the Twin Cities, because Vista operates many brands, and one being Federal Premium, which was based here in the Twin Cities, so that's why I say they have an office here.
So that when they, the brands are pretty big name brands then, too.
Federal, Savage, those are, I think, two of their biggest ones, and I know they have a bunch of other ones I just can't name off right now. But yeah, they purchased Camp Chef, which is based out west in Utah, and I was talking to some of the employees, and they had no idea it was coming down the wire.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Well, that's usually how it happens. What do you think the strategy is there for a company like Vista?
I thought it was interesting, the timing of the release.
Okay.
Which was, being a PR person, I kind of look at that like, oh, you sent this right before a long holiday weekend.
Yeah, and we should point out that we're recording this late on Saturday of Labor Day weekend, so when Michelle actually gets it posted up in the end of October.
I've been doing a very good job.
I know. but we need to at least express the timing here that it came out right before Labor Day weekend. So, and that happens often. I mean, you see that with political
it's very strategic.
What did you call that? It's
shenanigans. That's what I call it.
Shenanigans. In a sense,
this is what it is, Jim. You send out releases that you want to get picked up and you want to have a lot of news about on Monday. You send out releases that you want to get buried and not get picked up on Friday afternoon at 5 o'clock or right before a big major holiday like what they did. So that's telling me Vista Outdoors doesn't want this news to get picked up. Why?
Yeah, I mean, that's odd. I mean... I guess
why wouldn't you want to? Why wouldn't you want to say that you've purchased Camp Chef, which is a wonderful company, wonderful people, great products?
Now, is it possible, Michelle, you're just reading too much into it?
It could be.
I mean,
but
maybe they just didn't come to a conclusion on the deal until Thursday.
Any PR person worth their salt would have said, "Let's hold off on this until after the holiday."
Okay.
So. Granted, they're a publicly traded company, and I still think even the investor relations guy would have said, because why would they release it right before a holiday? Were they wanting to get a bump right before it closed for the holiday on their stock?
Well, the fact that you even brought this up as a non-PR person, I would never have thought of this, but now you've got me wondering.
When you hear and see big news from now on, the timing of it, there's always a reason for the timing.
Well, I understand that in the political world, if they've got to announce something.
I just mean any world. Any world.
Well.
Car world.
So are you saying that we should pay attention to what happens down the road here in the next few weeks regarding Camp Chef? Or?
Yeah. I'd watch that stock. I'd be curious to see how that stock is doing.
When you say the stock, is it the stock for Camp Chef
No,
or for Vista?
Vista is publicly traded. Camp Chef is not.
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't know. Anyway, yeah, that was very interesting news that happened. So.
Yeah, it certainly is, and I mean, Camp Chef is certainly a good quality products that they must have been around now for what, 15 years maybe?
Yeah, I think so.
I'm just kind of guessing, but it's got to be about 15 years that I think they've been around, and there's certainly a lot of loyal customers out there. So I guess we'll have to watch and see what happens.
And yeah, and this fall, I don't know. What are you doing this fall, Jim? We were just talking about.
Well, yeah, we were. I mean, we
were like, I'm so busy all the way through December.
I was telling Michelle that I'm pretty much, my weekends are busy all the way through, pretty much up and leading up to Christmas. And I guess, that's a good thing when you're into the outdoors. You don't want to have weekends that you're not planning to do stuff. Unfortunately, not all my weekends are tied up with hunting or related
There's this
activities.
Thing called work and family.
But anyhow.
But you're going to invite me out
to
set your trap lines.
Yeah, I guess I want to try and get some more exercise again this year. And one of the things that's always good for that is to set a small trap line. And trap lines are nice because, well, basically by law, they have to be checked every day. So you have a good excuse to be out every day and getting exercise. What
are you trapping?
Well, I think this year we're gonna target some coyote. And I think we're going to go after some mink. So we're going to be doing some dry land sets, and we're going to also be doing some water sets.
That's cool. I'm looking forward to it.
So
I've never done this before. I have no idea what I'm getting into. So.
Well, I don't set out a lot of traps, so there isn't a lot of success that's achieved. But we're hoping to get a couple of coyotes, and there certainly is a lot of them around on the farm where I live. I can hear them all the time. But people think that the coyotes are easy to trap, and they certainly aren't.
Smart, yeah.
In fact, when I was growing up, we didn't really have coyotes around then. They've kind of moved into the area, but we had more red and gray fox. And even then we thought that was quite a challenge, but in the whole scheme of things, coyote are so much more.
We used to say cunning like a fox, but it should be cunning like a coyote or a wolf.
It really is,
coyotes and wolves are. People say, "Oh, you shouldn't hunt them." It's like they're extremely difficult to hunt and trap.
With a fox, if you don't have luck, it's possible that you can call them back in and get another shot at
your rabbit call.
Well, no, I mean with the trapping. Maybe a week would go by and you can get them the next time around. That's not really the case so much with coyote.
Once they deem something is off, that's it.
Yeah, a lot of times you got a one-shot deal at them, and if things don't look right, they don't even come close to. So you gotta really think a lot more like your prey, and that's kind of a neat challenge. And of course with mink, that's a totally different one. For the most part, the way I do that are water sets, so you get to splash around in water, which is fun up until the water starts freezing. And then you got to break ice and do all that sort of stuff. So we're hoping for a fall season here that the ice stays away.
That's gentle on you for trapping.
As much as I hate to say this, the fact that I declared I'm water trapping this year probably indicates an early winter, because that's generally what happens if things freeze up a little quicker. But yeah, we're going to do that for a few weeks. We also plan to do some deer hunting. And
you taking Elsie out?
Yeah, we're going to take her out deer hunting. I just bought a new hunting blind. In fact, this afternoon I'm going to put it up for the first time and let it air out a little bit and
what kind you
get used to it. It's a Primos a deluxe double bull blind, one of the
Cool.
One of the bigger ones that they've got. So I just wanted something a little newer. It's not that the blind I have isn't still working, but it's getting old, and after it's been out in the woods for a few weeks each fall, it's amazing how some of the rodents start chewing little holes in there,
really?
and you don't see. All of a sudden, you see a lot of sunlight coming in here and there. That
like, how did that happen?
there's just not a whole lot you can do about it. I mean, you leave something out in the woods. Now, those blinds are something that you can certainly go out and put up and take with you. I mean, it's within a minute you can do that. But I typically put my blind up and I'll earth anchor it out there so that when a big windstorm comes up, it doesn't go blowing away. And
sure.
So I guess that's the price you pay when you leave blinds out in the woods a little bit. The critters can gnaw on it. But so we got that. So we'll be doing a little bit of that. Probably won't be doing much for pheasant.
We were just talking about the pheasant opener in Minnesota, and here it's the same weekend, and I've committed to speak at Minnesota BlogCon.
We need to talk about that, but let's just finish up here. So
okay.
We'll probably do, not do much for pheasant, but we hope to get out and do some duck hunting. And anyhow, those seasons are all right around the corner, and this is my favorite time of the year we're getting into. I mowed lawn here a couple days ago, and I noticed there's leaves that are starting to fall on the ground. And I mean, the
pumpkin spice latte is now available at Starbucks.
Yeah, here's the difference between Michelle and I. Michelle knows it's fall because Starbucks has the pumpkin spice. I know it's fall because I start looking out into the soybean fields and I see the leaves starting to turn yellow and dry up, and those type of subtle little signs. But Michelle, she can tell by the fact that the pumpkin spice
latte is now available.
Yeah. But yeah, tell us a little bit about. So on the middle of October, you're giving a podcasting class.
Yeah, I was actually surprised they took my presentation, but I think you're always surprised when you're like, oh hey, we'd love to have you speak. And you're like, oh really? So, it's middle of the month, Minnesota BlogCon conference. There is a charge to attend, but it's pretty nominal.
Well, I wouldn't expect anything different to come listen to you talk.
Yeah.
I mean...
this is solid information you're going to learn. But,
right.
Yeah.
It's going to be life-changing for some people, I'm sure.
Well, it's focused to bloggers, and the gist of my speech was helping them develop their own podcast and helping them get their own voice out, because podcasting is so popular nowadays. And I just had someone, because I wrote a series of articles on podcasting for the National Shooting Sports Foundation. If you want to go to their website, you can find them, all about how to get it going and what equipment to use and everything.
So if I wanted to find that website, what address would I look at?
I think it's nssf.org.
Okay.
Jim.
Just trying to help promote your articles that you wrote. But go ahead.
Yeah, but anyway, I just had someone reach out to me asking me about they're a nonprofit and they want to set up their own podcast. So I think it's great. Podcasting everyone's doing it.
There is. I mean, don't you think there's still a lot of people that are just scared? They don't know what to say and they get shy around microphones?
No, it's not. I don't think it's that. It's like a lot of people I think would love to do it. They're really scared of the setup. Like they don't understand the equipment. And I will agree, there's tons of different ways you can record a podcast. And they don't understand how easy it is to set up on iTunes and everything. So they just...
Well, and we should point out that we do it a lot of different ways, too. Today we happen to be using little lavalier microphones.
Yeah.
I believe I bought on Amazon for, I want to say it was like $23.
And they're plugged into my Mac, and we're using GarageBand to record. I mean, this is probably the most simplest setup.
And and undoubtedly it is not the highest quality, but... you can still get some pretty decent audio, and you can pull it off without spending a lot of money. I mean, a lot of people already have a laptop computer, and $23. What did I show you the other day? There's some microphones you can get off of Amazon that
$16.
Yes, for $16 you can get really broadcast quality microphones.
I bought that microphone.
Did you?
I did, because it was $16, so I bought it. We'll have to use it next time.
I don't even remember. I don't even remember the name of it. But if anybody wants to get a hold of us,
I'll put it in the show notes.
Put it in the show notes.
Yeah.
But I came across this comparison of a bunch of high-priced microphones. And they're comparing microphones that are $200, $300, $400 and more dollars.
Yeah.
And granted, some of them did sound slightly better, but for the untrained ear, and I'm not saying my ear is trained, I thought these $16 microphones you can buy, and they're cheap Chinese microphones. But the beauty of that is, if you lost it, if you damaged it, you don't have to sit and cry about it, because it's not a big expense.
Exactly.
And
I think that's a lot of it for people who wanting to get into podcasting, is that they see some people who are podcasters, and we have mutual friends who are like this, that they have equipment to the nines. And I think they get a little, what's the word? They just get scared by seeing this, and they're like, well, I don't know, what is that recorder, and what's that, and what do you have there? And you don't need all that stuff. Like, some of these people are really techie, gadget people,
right?
And they want to do that, but you don't have to do that.
No, I mean, really, all you're trying to seek is something that's pleasant. You don't want something that's going to interfere with the listener's enjoyment.
I don't even know if today if people will stick around and listen to the end just because of the wind.
They might not. But you know what? That's what you face when you deal with a couple of outdoor podcasters, because we don't do everything indoors. We take it to the field.
We take it to the street.
And in this case, we're taking it to a city park in the South Twin Cities. But I mean, if you're at a shooting range and you hear the guns going off in the background, if you're at a trade show like the SHOT Show and you hear people talking in the background, you hear somebody on a public address talking on, and that kind of background noise just adds reality to what you're doing. You don't want to always be inside of a production studio where there's soundproof walls and everything is so aseptic that it may sound really good, but we're going more for the natural sound here.
All natural.
Well, so that's good. So you got that presentation all put together then?
No. Not at all.
So when you work on a presentation like that, do you put it together days leading up, or do you actually...
Well, there's a lot of thinking that goes on in the background. And I start collecting articles. So I create like a separate folder in my inbox in my email, and I start collecting things, or I use Evernote, and I collect them on Evernote.
So how long is your talk that day?
I don't know.
Like 45 minutes?
Probably.
Okay.
Probably 40 minutes and then 10 minutes for Q&A. So I use Evernote, I use my email, and I start collecting. And because there's so much information out there, and plus my own experience, and I just start putting an outline together. Yeah, probably a week leading up to it is probably when I'll actually do it.
Is that how you did things in college, too?
I don't know if I was that bad in college, but...
Well, I think I probably was. I would put things off until the last minute. Yeah. But, that's cool, Michelle, that you're doing that, and look forward to hearing how that turns out.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you. Well, I think that's all I have to say today, Jim.
Well, I've probably said enough, too. So I suppose we better wrap it up, and next time we'll be a little deeper into the fall season here, and maybe we'll even take the listeners out on the trap line.
That's a good idea.
Late in October when we do it.
That's a good idea.
We can we'll let people know that, trapping isn't this cruel sport that everybody makes it out to be. And it certainly serves a purpose for wildlife management and other reasons. So, Anyhow, Michelle, it's good meeting with you again today. And if anybody has any questions or comments, I'm sure there's a way on the show notes to get a hold of us. And
yeah, and the show notes are always actually on my blog, bulletproofmediablog.com.
And the other thing, too, if there's ever any topics that people would like us to talk about, if you got some ideas, we're always open to those suggestions, too. Just drop either Michelle or myself a note. You can reach me on sportsmansblog.com.
Peace out, Jim.
You bet.
You've been listening to Back at the Lodge, a podcast hosted by Jim Broughton and Michelle Sherman. Please join them again next time for another episode as they discuss a variety of topics pertaining to the great outdoors.